You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession.
This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt Doduro. Let's hustle.
Guys, Jim Chester here. I have my good friend here and coach, Dr. Larry Goodman. Dr. Larry Goodman is coming in from where?
Miami, Florida.
All right, so Chiro Hustle Sponsorship Edition today is coming to you from the Mile High City. We are in Denver, Colorado, and we're really excited to share some of the things that Larry has been working on with my team in Chiro Hustle, but also what it is like to be on a sponsorship committee for Chiro Hustle as well. But before we jump into those topics, let's talk a little bit about one of the core elements that you provide to your clients is mindset mastery.
Fine, that's great.
So mindset, how can you find that common bond with all of your clients and help sort them out?
So the first thing to understand really is that what you think about and think about, you bring about, and that you have no real random thoughts. And so when you begin to realize that your thoughts are what are determining your reality, the first thing we work to do is, shall we say, rein in the beast. Because most people spend so much of their time in the mindset of being the reactor as opposed to being the creator and being proactive that they wind up responding to stimuli as opposed to setting intentions. So the first lesson there is to learn is to be intentional and to set an intention. And I begin that with people with the first lesson I give to everyone every time I speak and every time I interact with people. And that's the big one that I got from Dr. Larry Markson, and that is to start your day the moment your eyes open, before you even get out of bed, with the affirmation out loud so you can hear it, that something great is going to happen to me today. And when you install that into your neurology as the first input of the day, it really does shape what starts to happen in your day.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you had me do early on was a personal mission statement and listen to that every day. Why do you think that is so important to people's neuroplasticity?
Well, okay, so it's important to your neuroplasticity because it sets the framework for how your neurology is going to operate and what you're going to be looking for to create from a vibrational standpoint. And the way it is we do that is have people determine and clarify what their values are, and then from those values to build out a mission statement that's comprehensive for all of the areas of your life, so that you actually have a vision and a mission in your life spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, in your career, in your family, in your social, and in your recreational aspects. And so once you identify what it is you'd love to be and do and have in each of those areas, what we then do is literally record you in your own voice in a very present meditative state, affirming for you what it is you'd love to be and do and have. And then you begin the process of listening to you install in your neurology daily what your ideal scene is. And when you do that daily over time, what starts to happen is your neurology comes to resonate with that. It becomes part of your innermost dominant thought, and what happens in your life becomes a reflection of that, as opposed to being reactive to the circumstances in your life. And so if I were to play you my personal mission statement that I started working with in 1993 and keep refining and refining and refining, if you heard my personal mission statement today and you followed me around through the course of my life, what you'd see is that the life that I'm manifesting is aligned with that mission statement. And so, what I work with people to do from the beginning is to establish your own agenda, your own mission statement, and then build the habit framework within you so that that becomes your focal point, starting your morning of rituals.
I started doing that a while ago, and I started manifesting exactly what was inside of that like little like time capsule synopsis that I would
Yep,
reflect on each day.
right.
It's uncanny how many of the things that I manifested with that personal mission statement that are all true today. So
Yes,
what happened is I succeeded in so many of those facets of manifestation that now I had to create a new one because
that's exactly what I was going to say is when you start to see it work, part of the ongoing coaching relationship involves semi-annually or annually taking a look to see what's working, what's not, what's manifested and what you'd love to have manifest next. And it becomes a process of ongoing evolution. So that if you heard my original one from 1993, there are things that were there then that aren't part of it anymore now because, like you said, they've come, they've shown up, they've manifested. My skill sets have grown. I've evolved. I set new purposes and new missions, and then they grow and grow and grow.
Well, I really appreciate what you're saying there because I know that I've seen it happen in me and I've seen it happen in other people that you've been working with. One of the things that's like concrete inside of my personal mission statement is to coach and to be coached. Let's just talk a little bit about why it's so important for people to have someone like you as their coach.
Well, let's put it this way. The whole personal coaching industry was created by Tony Robbins. And the reason he created it was he borrowed the concept from the professional athlete world and recognized that the highest performing athletes, no matter what their skill level was, no matter how much they were getting paid, no matter how vital their position was, they were always ongoingly being coached either in continuing to grow and evolve their skills or repetition of the fundamentals. And that's really a part of the point is only a coach who really gets to know you, who really gets to know what your blind spots are. And that's a point that bears mentioning here is we all have blind spots. We all have facets of our being, facets of our practice, facets of our lives that are, let's say politely, they're not our strongest suit. And we tend to want to, by ego structure, we tend to want to deny that and defend against that. And by having a coach who knows you and who's skilled at being able to communicate with you about those blind spots, what you're able to do is shrink the blind spots, grow the new skills so that eventually you become, we'll call it well rounded.
And I know that more directly towards our audience, we have a lot of chiropractors that follow Chiro Hustle. We have a lot of clinics that are probably looking for an edge. And I know that you do offer a program called Grow Yourself, Grow Your Practice. Let's pivot into that just a little bit so people kind of know like what some of your actionable items are that you provide to your clients are.
Sure enough. So grow yourself, grow your practice is actually a podcast you can pick up and watch. And that's information intensive on an ongoing basis based upon what we've come to recognize over time, which is that as you grow you, the person, based on your interests at any particular time. As you grow your practice will grow. So that you want to call it the secret to growing your practice really is growing yourself. And the other thing about that is it allows for the space of sustainability, because one of the things that's unfortunately epidemic in the chiropractic profession is the phenomena of burnout. We get very focused. We drive ourselves and our staffs really hard to achieve a lot of high success goals. And what they don't tell you is there's a price you pay for that when you go full out. You can actually um, create stress and trauma to your relationships. You can create stress and trauma to your body. You can create stress and trauma. To me, it's one of the great, I don't want to call it a tragedy, but it's certainly a paradox. The percentage of chiropractors that wind up being disabled with back and neck problems because of the way that they've lived their lives and gone about practicing and building their practices. And I'm here to say, A, it shouldn't be that way. B, it doesn't have to be that way, because if you grow yourself, if you take ongoing good care of yourself, if you're coached well, you'll evolve and change your, whether it's your technique or your body mechanics or your intention or what other ancillary services you offer, so that as you grow and evolve, and I'm going to say as you age, the exercise regimen that's appropriate for a 20-year-old is not the same exercise regimen that's appropriate for a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old. Well, guess what? The practice habits of a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, they ought not be the same as the practice habits of a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, and like that. And so in the coaching arena, besides just the podcast, what we do in the coaching arena is what I call identity based coaching. We make the practice that you build be a perfect fit for you, for where you are right now and where you'd love to be in 6 months and a year and 2 years, and however your event horizon goes, we're there to help you get there so that you arrive where you want to get to in overall balance and able to really enjoy it and make it be fun.
Well, you touched on a couple things there that I think that our viewers will be really interested in. And I guess if you had a chance to be on an elevator with a chiropractic student, what's the one pearl of wisdom you would give to them?
Mm. Relax. You're going to be successful. Really and truly. The 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 fear-based habits that too many students fall into early on, whether it's because of the burden of the student loan debt or because of a lack of vision or a lack of purpose, or just because the just because the associateship position that you may have taken does not align with your personal philosophy doesn't mean you have to stay there. If the other thing that I would tell them is think big, start small, and deliver the goods. I really love to work with people who and show them how to start a practice on a shoestring, especially in 2020. Being able to start a practice on a shoestring and add tremendous value enables you to be profitable early on. And if you can learn how to be profitable early on and start small, you
Well,
can build anything.
that leads me into the next question sequencing, and which I think is going to be a lot of fun for our viewers that are watching right now. But I did want to throw a pattern interrupt. If you guys are watching this and you're finding some value in what Dr. Larry and I are discussing, please comment in the chat feed there so we can recognize you. And do me one other big favor: share this Facebook Live so other people can see what Dr. Larry is up to and what the Goodman Factor can do for them. But sequencing into this conversation, now let's take somebody that's maybe been out for a decade and their back's up against the wall and they don't know how to reinvent themselves in the practice that they've created around them. What
Yep.
advice maybe do you have for that type of situation?
First of all, don't try to do it yourself. Really don't try, because the thing is, when you're in the box, you don't know how to get out of the box. Only someone who's, I should add, besides the skill sets that I've got, the thing I want people to really know is the reason why I know how to do this is I've been there. I've been there and I've done it. I reached my own burnout point in 1992 and 3, where there was a moment when I really didn't ever want to practice hands-on chiropractic again. And that's putting it mildly. And to have gone from that to where I am now really involved a total transformation where I learned how to, and now I can work with people to show them how to take everything, every skill you've got, every tool you've ever learned and worked with, and you can reapply them, you can re-engineer them, you can repurpose them, and either continue in your brick and mortar practice, if that's your passion, or even transition into virtual practice. And that can look like anything, really anything.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt DeDuro. Let's hustle.
Yeah, and I think that those are valuable lessons for people because a lot of times when people are ready to jump into practice, they're scared. When people have stabilized, they're actually scared.
Right?
And then, that's a place that a lot of people, get their mechanisms from. Their internal mechanism is based off of fear, scarcity of growth,
Correct.
scarcity of the unknown. And then they get stuck in this paradigm where they don't know what to do to function. And I think there's an old saying of analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis. And before they know it, they're chasing their tail and they're wondering why things aren't going the way that they want them to.
The other thing that I'm really proud to talk about, that we're probably unique in the practice coaching field, is we've developed a system of exit strategies where there's really a way to what you could call it in another business cash out, but in the chiropractic practice business, it may involve something more like transitioning to a more managerial role. It may involve diversifying the services that are offered within your facility. There's many ways to re-engineer and redesign and repurpose yourself if you know that there's a way. And that's really an important lesson. The practice coaching work that we do at Your Goodest Practice involves really working with the client and having them clarify what it is their ideal scene would be. And the point about that is all the more poignant this year, because this is 2020, and in vision, 2020 is perfect vision. And my mission for this year with clients and anybody that I get the opportunity to work with is to help them crystallize and perfect their vision, and then to develop the steps necessary to manifest that so they can have their goodest practice.
I think a lot of things, as always, I really appreciate you sharing so candidly. But I do want to recognize a couple of people here. Matt Millila, I think that's how you say your last name. I just met him in Nashville at a mastermind I was at with the Wave Makers. And I also want to recognize Stephanie Marie. She says, great advice. Think big, start small, and deliver the goods. Great point, Jim Cheshire. We cannot allow ourselves to have a scarcity mindset. So when we think about it, there's a lot of things that people need to hear, and they may have like heard it somewhere before. They just need to have a reintroduction to it. And I think that that's what it is. Like, you take somebody out of a system, like you said, every good athlete has a coach, maybe two coaches, maybe three coaches. So when you think about a system style, just say a quarterback, for instance, if you take them out of a system that's not working around them, you put them into a new system, next year they win the Super Bowl. And it's like taking a guy with the wrong jersey on a baseball team and putting him on to another roster. Next thing you know, he's a clubhouse guy and the team's winning. And he might not play every game, but he reinvigorates the team and brings a different culture to it. And I think that that's what a good coach can do to somebody that might have either stagnated, or they may have like lost their way, or they might have like shoehorned themselves into a situation that they don't like anymore.
Let me offer up two case examples of clients of mine, just to speak to what you're talking about. I have a client in Boston who, when we started working together, he literally had reached the point of disenchantment where, after 12 years in practice, he thought maybe he'd made a mistake becoming a chiropractor in the first place, that maybe he ought to take all of his knowledge and become a science teacher, because the world had changed, the insurance situation was devolving, and he really was up against the wall. And the only thing I can tell you is, by starting to work with his mindset and then getting him to have policies and procedures and strategies that work for 2020, last year was his best year in practice ever. We converted his practice completely to cash, and he's having the time of his life. Really helping people, being passionate, and oh so glad that he hung in there and did the work. So that's one extreme. Then I have another client who's been in practice for upwards of 20 years, and he'd actually gotten to the point when we met where he was thinking maybe he'd sell his practice because he was burnt out. That's what he said. And I've come to know that burnt out really means I've forgotten why it is I became a chiropractor in the first place, and I don't know how to reconnect with it. And what we started to do with him so turned things around that literally last week he had his busiest Friday ever in practice. And last week as a whole was his busiest and most profitable week in practice ever. And he's having the time of his life. And that's the other point I want to leave everybody with, this idea. Your practice should be, and practicing in it should be, like making love. If it doesn't feel good and it's not fun, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah. I think that segues us to our last topic of conversation. You touched on that a little bit, and that's thriving in a post-insurance industry. I know that a long time ago, like, there was this era that I was born into that a lot of chiropractors practice, called the Mercedes.
The Mercedes 80s. Oh, yeah.
And then there was the Nissan 90s.
Mm-hmm. What it was like in the Mercedes 80s was literally $5 and $10 copays, $100 deductibles, and if you could bill for it, you got paid. And as a result of practicing in that environment, your confrontational tolerance and ability to not only explain, but to deliver the perception of value didn't have to be very much, because the only value you needed to convey was $5 or $10.
And really, what that did is create negative brand equity over time.
100%. 100%. And so as things evolve to where they are now, where insurance is, I'm not sure how to describe it, except it's an aid. It's designed more now for real crisis intervention. But the chiropractors that are thriving today have learned how to transmit the value of what it is they do to their patients. They've learned the importance of looking at your health as an investment. They've learned the importance of aligning the services that they deliver to what the patient values the most. And if you do that, I'm here to tell you, people will invest anything in what they value highly. You just have to be able to communicate it authentically and deliver the goods. And if you can design any kind of practice. Cash. Cash.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, is teaching people to thrive in any environment,
Yes.
and building a skill set around what makes them unique. And I think that that's what all chiropractors are, is they are all thinking that they're the unicorn. They all think that they're the one that does it this way, no one else can do it like them. And it might be true, but now we need to build a business around that unique business proposition, which is their unique skill set, which is their ability to take care of their community. And I think that that's one of the silver linings within chiropractic, is all chiropractors get people better, and it's just determined on how can you build a business around that skill set.
When you really recognize that the body is a self-healing mechanism, and if you don't screw it up, they're going to get better. They're going to get better. And then becomes, how do you passionately create brand equity around your skill set that makes you become, as my friend Josh Wagner is fond of saying, the most sought after, referred to doctor in your community? And if you set out to do that, and you're willing to do the work to cultivate the skills necessary, they will travel any distance and pay any fee for access to that wisdom.
And this goes back to the first topic that we were discussing, and it's mindset and mastery.
Yep.
And that's the willingness to coach and to be coached, because the person that gets coached can now pour that coaching back into their practice members or their patients or clients, whatever the chiropractor so sees to call them. So
100%.
I think that a lot of times understanding these linear perspectives of building a practice, that's why it's not called building a perfect. And that's why it's called coaching, because it's not called always performing. Sometimes you have to sit back and listen. I love that both of our mentors, John DeMartini, says you might want to pick up your pen and paper and take some notes, because I might say a couple of things that you're going to find interesting that might be useful to you later.
I have probably reinvented myself conservatively maybe 5 times, maybe 8 times. I started practice in 1980. Who it is I was then and the skills I brought to the marketplace then are so completely different from who it is I am now and the skills I bring to the marketplace now. And what I can tell you is, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it feel good. That's what makes it exciting. And that's the last point I think that I want to mention is, it's useful to hire a coach who's got a coach. Because it means that he's committed his time, energy, and money to continuing to hone and refine his skills. There are too many practice coaches, practice management gurus, whatever words you want to use to call them, that are, how can I say it respectfully? They're telling the same story, reading the same script from the same book that they used in the 70s. These are not the 70s. They're definitely not. In 2020, it's all about passion. It's all about authenticity. It's all about you being the best you that you can be to bring out the best in the patient that they can be. And if you do that and you hit that sweet spot, it's a thing of beauty.
Well, I found that to be the truth with you. I appreciate you sponsoring and supporting Chiro Hustle as we transition to the next level. It's been a real honor to get to know you over the past year. We were talking about that pre-interview chat where it was a year ago that we both met down in Miami for the 10X growth conference with Grant Cardone. And It was really cool to be able to network down there and to see what's spawned off of that first meeting a year ago and to see where we both are 1 year later. I just want to once again acknowledge everybody that's been out there watching us today on this sponsorship Facebook Live of Chiro Hustle. And if you guys found some value in this, hashtag value in the comments. If you guys made it this far into this live and you found value in it, also please share it. And please subscribe to our podcast channel. Go over to chirohustle.com and listen to an episode. I don't know what episode Dr. Larry Goodman is, but if you do a search for him, you can find our episode of Chiro Hustle with Dr. Larry Goodman. And just want to say once again, thank you, Dr. Larry, for being with us today. And if you guys made it this far once again and you're watching this on replay, hashtag replay in the comments so we know that you made it all the way to the end of this interview.
You bet. And if you get a chance and you want to see my podcast, Build Yourself, Build Your Practice, and check out goodmanfactor.com, and love to be here to help you grow.
And that is in the description of this Facebook Live up top. So it says click here if you guys wanted to get more information what Dr. Larry Goodman is doing and how you've seen me personally level up. A lot of this is due to the attention to detail and the consistency that Dr. Larry has had with me. So I just want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Larry. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk to our audience today about?
Quitters never win, and winners never quit.
Vince Lombardi.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me today on this Thursday afternoon. And I'm going to close out by telling you guys just one story away. Keep hustling. We'll see you guys on the next interview, and we'll keep on bringing the truth of chiropractic to you.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.